دنگ رادیو کردانه است لباژیر لاحه
دنگ گشتی آزادی خوازیل و دموکراسی خوازیل دولات کردستان
دنگ ادب و هنر و شهرستانیت
دنگ آشتی و داد پروری و یکسانی
دنگ ولات خمان کردستان لرستان و لکستان
دنگ خوشکایتی و برایتی گشت مردم زورله کریای ایران
I was 2 years old when my aunt Zارعی was executed in October 1982. I was 6 years old when I went out of Iran to join my father in France, was a granted political asylum after spending the time in hiding in France. And I was 8 years old when my mother was executed in the massacre of the summer of 1988. So mainly what I know about the details of their prison experience and execution comes from written testimony. My grandfather has written after his second daughter's death, so after 1988. It's a 100 pages long testimony. And I came into possession of this handwriting notebook in 2004. I have translated it and published it in French with the publisher in the collection Testimonies. And it has been translated in English and will be published by the publishing house Yoda Press in Delhi.
Do you have a copy of that publication?
I have a French copy of the book. The book is written under my name. It consists of the 100 pages long testimony from my father. A writing I have added to it, which relates the trajectory that I have done from the moment I came to know what happened to my mother and aunt until the moment I published the book, and it focuses on the way memories are transmitted into families that were subjected to state violence in this period in Iran. The book also has the translation of a few letters that were written by both my mother and my aunt before and after the revolution of 1979, and letters written by my father, including one letter he wrote to the prosecutor of the revolutionary court after my mother's arrest.
Are you able to make a copy of that available to the court?
Yes.
Does the court want a copy of the publication now, or can we get this internet elevated? I can see into author and evidence. I want to ask you, was your mother involved with or affiliated with any political organization in Iran?
Yes, my mother was a sympathizer of the Mujahideen party, the People's Mujahideen. She was a candidate for the Mujahideen party at these first elections, legislative elections held in 1980.
What about your aunt? Was she affiliated with any political organization?
Yes, my aunt was also a sympathizer of the Mujahideen party in the city of Shورا. My mother was candidate in the city of Shiraz, in the province of Fars. And my aunt, Zارعی, was a candidate in the city of the same party for the same legislative elections in the city of Shورا.
In your statement, you write that your mother was arrested on June the 15th, 1981. Can you describe the circumstances of her arrest?
Yes, I have the details of this arrest by other relatives. It was not reported in my grandfather's memoir. From a relative from my mother's side, and also from what my father has told me. My father, Mekárimi, has submitted a written witness statement to the Iran tribunal. Fátima, my mother, was taking part in a demonstration near the city bazaar in Shiraz. And there was a human chain that formed in order to prevent the militiamen from attacking the crowd. And at one point, the human chain broke, and some people were arrested and taken into municipalities in order to be taken to the police station. And my mother was one of them, but she had the time to give her wallet with her IDs to someone in the crowd, asking them to go and at this address and report that she had been arrested. Because she didn't have her IDs with her, she was not recognized immediately, and she was on the point of being released the morning after she was held in custody. But as she came close to the door of the police station, former student of her, who was, because my mother was a physics and chemistry high school teacher, recognized her as the candidate of the Mujahideen party, and then she was taken back to the police station, taken to prison, and she never came out.
After your mother was taken to prison, do you have any information on how she was treated?
Yes, I do. These information rely on the written testimony of my grandfather. And with your permission, I would like to read the extract that my grandfather wrote in order to be the most accurate. My mother was so she, there are several things. She was held in prison in Adilabad prison in Shiraz, and she was transferred for periods up to 8 months to the Sefari Center, the Postarian Sefari Detention Center in Shiraz as well. There was a great difference between the Sefari Detention Center and the Adilabad prison, because the Sefari Detention Center was especially designed for interrogations. and the level of violence was lower in the other. The pressure on the prisoners were lower in the other prison. My mother was often put in solitary confinement.
Excuse me, where did that happen? In which prison?
In both Odeon prison as a punishment, as a disciplinary sanction, and in the Seferi prison. My mother was also transferred once in 1984 in Tehran, in the Seferi Detention Center in Tehran. Regarding her conditions of detention, besides the fact that she spent many times in solitary confinement, she was also subjected to torture here I would like to, I would like to report what happened specifically to her in June 1983, where she was transferred to the Seferi Detention Center. She was, as she told her parents, and my grandfather later reports it in his testimony, she was taken to the religious judge, to the Sharia judge, Hujjatul Islam Ramazani in Shiraz. The judge handed her the draft of the letter and asked her to copy it in her own handwriting, and she was to prepare for a TV interview based on this letter. My mother refused. She was blindfolded and asked to get to the car. She was transferred in the basement where the judge Ramazani and two guards waited for her in the torture room. And then my grandfather reports the following account made by my mother, and I'm quoting. They laid me down on a special bed. They tied my feet and legs up to the knees to the corners of the bed using an instrument equipped with a spring. I was amazed. I asked myself by what miracle I had not yet fainted and how I was still capable of watching the proceedings. One of the guards picked up an electrical cable hanging on the wall that served as a whip and waited for the judge's permission for him to give the signal to begin. At the first whiplash, the nail of my right big toe flew up into the judge's face. I withstood 3 more lashes. After that, I don't know what happened. It was about 10 a.m. when they took me into this basement, but when I regained consciousness, it was 9 p.m. and I was lying on the bed in the infirmary. My legs were very painful and they were swollen. I could no longer place them on the ground. They led me with difficulty to a cell. 3 days later, they took me back to the judge's office, Mr. Ramazani, again. All he did was repeat the same speeches and say, "Your salvation depends on your willingness to collaborate with us." I refused. I was taken to the same basement and the same scene was enacted. I fainted after 10 lashes and I regained consciousness in the infirmary. I was transferred to my cell, but my legs were paralyzed from the knee down and I could only move around with difficulty on my kneecaps. The backs of my legs were covered in gashes, pus was flowing from them. Although I begged the sister who was guarding me to take me to the infirmary, or maybe they would have given me something to calm the pain, it felt as if my leg had been thrust into a fire. This helpless woman replied, "Listen to his honor the judge advise or die." Henceforth, I had no choice but to endure the pain and the suffering. Throughout this period, I was not given enough to eat either. A few days later, they took me back to the basement, but this time, almost as soon as I reached there, I fainted in terror. All I heard was His Honor the Judge saying, "Take her away." They took me back to my cell, but a day or 2 days later, they shifted me. The new cell was in fact a toilet where I barely had the room to turn around. The air sprang nauseatingly. I spent 5 whole months in that cursed dungeon. The worst in that, for a month, every morning a tap would open the door and spit in my face. I was weak during those 5 months. I cried over my plight and asked God to deliver me from life. I could not believe I was tough enough to survive and endure all this suffering. Believe me, I had forgotten everything. I no longer thought about my children or my parents. I was paralyzed. I had turned into a statue. And my grandfather goes on a little further. The other event that broke our heart was that this poor woman had been deprived of light for 4 months. She said, I was locked in dark cell, which was actually the toilet that was used as the solitary confinement cell, where they transferred her to. On visiting days, they brought her blindfolded to the telephone booth for the 3 minutes I mentioned earlier. They removed the blindfold. Then, after the conversation, they took her back to her cell, blindfolded again. Once or twice, her poor children had seen their mother in this heartbreaking state, and they were no longer willing to go to visit her. In November 1983, my mother was transferred back to Odella prison.
How did your grandfather learn this information?
My mother was granted a one-day visit in person with her family in 1985, and she was also inside of the prison, and she was also granted 1 3-day and 1 2-day visit permissions outside the prison to go back to her parents' house, to her house, in the spring of 1988, so just before she was executed. During this time, she had the occasion, I guess, to speak more freely, as my grandfather reports, and so she told her family about what happened to her.
What were the charges, if any, against your mother?
At the time of her trial, my mother was arrested on the 15th of June 1981, which is 5 days before the great demonstration of the 20th of June. At the time, the party she was affiliated to didn't declare armed struggle yet. So there was the charges against her were distributing leaflets against the Islamic Republic and holding speeches against the Islamic Republic.
What was your mother's sentence?
My mother was first sentenced to 5 years of prison, and she appealed this sentence, as my grandfather reports. She was given a 10-year sentence. I have to say that I have asked other relatives from my mother's side what this appeal consisted in, and actually the board that was leading her to the judge in the revolutionary court asked her, she said to the board that she was not happy with the sentence, she was not satisfied with the sentence, she thought it was not a fair trial. So we brought her again in front of the judge, repeating what she had said to me, and she was given a 10-year sentence.
Did your mother have a lawyer?
No, she didn't.
Do you know how long her trial lasted?
According to the same relative I talked to, who had in-person conversations with my mother during these times of visit I mentioned earlier, the trial lasted about 5 minutes.
Where did that take place, the trial?
I don't know where it took place, and I know that my mother was both blindfolded there.
Were any of your family allowed to attend the trial?
Of course not.
Were there any witnesses against your mother?
This I don't know.
In your statement, you write that in May the 31st, 1988, your grandfather was summoned to the prison by the authorities. Why was he summoned on that day?
1988. My grandfather was, can you repeat the date? Because he was summoned several times.
This was in May the 31st, 1988.
So if my memory is correct, he was summoned because there was a meeting with a prison official and my mother. During this meeting, the prison official asked my grandfather to contact my father, Mekارimi, who lived in France, in order to tell him my mother in front of the official, as my grandfather reports, my mother in front of the official asked her father to contact her husband, my father, Mekari, and ask him to come back to Iran and collaborate with the regime in rebuilding the country that had suffered from the war. She said that the intelligence service had done research on my father and know that his situation was good in France. He was working as an engineer, and the country needed some skilled people at the time. And so that was the reason why my grandfather was signed.
Was your mother's request to your grandfather freely made?
I don't think so, and my grandfather doesn't think so either. He thought that it was part of the pressures that were put on my mother, the psychological and mental torture that she endured throughout her 7 years of detention.
In your statement, you also write that, according to your grandfather, the situation in the prisons started to change in mid-June or July 1988. Can you tell us a little bit more about that change and what was going on in the prisons?
I think I don't have the time to go and find the exact quotation, the exact phrases that my grandfather uses in his written testimony, but what he reports is that during the family visits in late June 1988, the prisoners seemed terrified, and they wouldn't tell anything to their families. They would stay silent, but the atmosphere in the prison during the Saturdays, which was the day of the family visit, was full of anxiety and fear, much more than usual.
Also in your statement, you say that in July the 16th, 1988, members of your family were called to the prison about 4 p.m. to see your mother. What happened during that meeting?
My grandfather reports that first he was surprised because this meeting took place one day after the Saturday weekly visits, so he didn't see the point in being allowed a visiting person. And he saw my mother who told him, so the guard, according to what my grandfather wrote, the guard that accompanied her told them that Sister Faطmه, my mother, had to go on a journey, and so they wanted to grant the last visit. My mother then spoke, and she told them that the night before, at 11 p.m., she had been brought in front of, in a room, in front of several people, some of whom she knew, the prison warden, Mr. Torampur in Shiraz, the Sharia judge, some other people from the intelligence service she had met before, but also people that she didn't know yet. And they had asked her a question, which is, they had asked her 2 questions. The first one is, are you still a sympathizer of the Mujahideen party? She answered, she said, according to my grandfather, she said that she answered that she didn't know what to do anymore to convince them that she had abandoned any political activities. The second question was, what do you think of the Islamic Republic? And her answer to this question was that she didn't know what to think about the Islamic Republic because she had been in prison in the 7.5 years that this regime lasted. And then, according to what my grandfather reports, she told him, they say, bring her back, take her away. And she told him that she didn't know the reason of this hearing.
When was the last time any member of your family saw your mother?
At this occasion.
In Can you tell the court, according to your grandfather's memoirs, what happened during the next week in the prisons?
According to my grandfather, the families found the prison gates closed on the next weekly visit, and the prisons remained closed for a few months. Some pastors were posted in front of the gates in order to chase the families that would gather eventually, waiting for an answer concerning where the children were. There was a sign stating that there were some construction work going on in the prison, renovation work going on in the prison, and the prison will remain closed for now.
Do you have any idea when your mother was executed?
No, I don't.
How did your family learn of the execution of your mother?
According to my grandfather's written testimony, he was one day because he went on going randomly in front of the prison with other families in order to find out when they will have eventually a visit, whether the prison would reopen soon or not. In the month of November, I think, 1988, the gates opened on a Saturday, and the families that were gathered in front of the prison were called in. That they were asked to fill a form with the name of their imprisoned relative, their own names, the profession of their imprisoned relative, their own profession, their address, telephone number, etc. And then the guards gathered the forms and sent the people out of the prison again, out of the prison courtyard. Then, without further explanation, then in very early December 1988, there was a phone call summoning my grandfather to the prison for the next day, early at 8 a.m. And when he went there, he was summoned as the father of the prisoner. And when he went there, saw a line of other fathers of prisoners, or one member of the prisoner family. A man was asked, the first father in line was asked to enter the prison. They made them enter one by one. He went out with a paper. He couldn't read because he was illiterate, but he said that they asked him to put his fingerprint on a form. And on this piece of paper, there was only the name of the cemetery, the number of the road, the alley, and the town where their daughter was supposed to be buried. And my grandfather went through the same procedures, but when he was he met an official, a young official in an office that asked him to sign a paper that stated that no burial, no official ceremony was to be organized, no ceremony in mosque was to be organized for my mother either, and no public funeral at the cemetery should be organized. And he refused to sign the paper, and he was brought out of the prison by the back door and taken into a car and released in another part of the city. And before being pulled out of the car, the guards put a sheet of paper with the town number, the alley section, and the number of the town where my mother was buried in my grandfather's pocket. And I'm mentioning it because I think it's important to understand the techniques that were used in order to keep the family silent all the way. When the news were delivered, but also after the news was written.
Speaking of your family, while your mother was in prison, did anything happen to members of your family who were not in prison?
Yes. My grandfather reports in his testimony that one day in spring 1984, my mother was transferred in Tehran. But before my family learned that it was informed she had been transferred in Tehran, some weeks passed and we didn't have any news of where she was or whether she was alive or not. And during these weeks, my grandfather went to the court, to the revolution court, or to other public administrations in order to have news from his daughter to find out where she was. And at one point, he reports that he lost his mind in a revolutionary court. And he talked out loud about the murder of the execution of Khosrow Ashwari, a tribal chief. That it was a public execution that took place a few days ago. So we talked about these and kind of like talked out loud against the regime and against this execution. And he said he lost his mom and he was escorted out of the court. A few weeks after that, some pastor came into our house and asked for my younger aunt, who was 11 years old at the time, and they say they wanted to bring her for an interrogation. Then my mother protested very violently against that. According to my grandfather, the pastor made a phone call and managed to be discharged of bringing my younger aunt, but it was an intimidation, obviously.
During the incarceration of your mother, and because of time, we have to move ahead. You have a lot to say and many details, but because of time, we have one more witness before we close for today. So I need to ask you to be more brief on your answers. During the time that your mother was in prison, were other members of your family interrogated?
My aunt was also in prison, that one is already.
Were other members of your family interrogated who were not in prison? I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have information about that. What I know is that acquaintances of my family friends who had some relationship with my grandparents were interrogated.
Can you tell the court when your aunt was arrested and kind of sum up what happened to her? And I also would like to know what was her condition when she was arrested.
So my aunt was arrested in late March 1982 at the roadblock between Barabas and Shiraz. She lived so she was into hiding at the time of her arrest. She lived with her husband. Her husband was killed during the arrest. My aunt, who was pregnant at the time, managed to escape, and then she was arrested at the roadblock before she reached Shiraz. She was held in a prison in Shiraz and interrogated there, and also executed within the prison. And then she was asked to go and bring the news of her arrest herself to her parents. After that, she was transferred to prison, to Madaras prison. In early April 1982, the family had the news that she had been arrested and detained in the prison. According to a pastor that talked to my grandfather, as he reports it, she received 30 whiplashes when she came into the prison, but she was not physically tortured further because she was pregnant, according to what the pastor said. She was, however, interrogated 19 days, according to what her cellmates say. 3 integrators took turn in integrating her for 4 months. She was transferred in Gashtaran in August 1982 in order to be executed publicly. That means that the Sepah had put her in a convertible car and said with loudspeaker that this is Fatima Zari, the victim of the Monoferin who escaped in Gashtaran. People were some people were, according to what my grandfather said, people were hired to march behind the car and ask for her execution. But then the scene caused a lot of distress and anger within the local population. So she was transferred back into Bandar. When she was in Gashtaran, when my family was granted a visit to her, my grandfather went to see her, and when he reports that she was detained in an iron container with like the temperature within this container was of 50 degrees. She was all wet with sweat. She was pregnant at the time. She was in a high day rotation. She also said to her mother-in-law and to other relatives of the family that during visits that she had been subjected to 3 mock executions. We have a last will from her that is published in the book I mentioned. But this will is dated from late July 1982. She has been executed in October 1982, which means that this is during one of the 3 mock executions.
How did you learn about her execution?
My grandfather reports that she called at home one night and she asked the relative who picked up the phone to bring her baby diapers and maternity toolkit. And that's all. And then my grandfather and my grandmother and her mother-in-law went to Bandar Abbas to see her 2 mornings after this phone call. When they came to Shah prison, her wedding ring and watch was handed back to my grandfather with the consign with these and my grandfather was asked not to say anything about, not to make any funeral rite or anything about for her death, and to go and pick up her body at the morgue. When he went to pick up her body at the morgue, he talked with the morgue agent who told him about my aunt's execution, because he said, I was called last night as I am almost every night to the Shah prison in order to wait for the dead bodies, in order to pick up the dead bodies and bring them to the morgue. And he had heard some women joining hands. He stayed in the pastoral cubicle from where he could see women joining hands and chanting Allah Akbar, God is great, and calling him our leader. And then one woman came out of the circle and spread a sheet and prayed, and then she lied there. Another woman went in front of her, stood in front of her, and he heard, and the woman chanted again, Allah Akbar, and he heard gunshots. Then he was asked to go and pick up my aunt's body directly on the sheet where she laid and bring her to the morgue.
What happened to her baby?
We don't know. My grandmother and her mother-in-law tried very hard to have a glimpse of her body while it was washed at the funerarium in order to know whether she was still pregnant or not at the time of her death. My grandmother said that her breast looked like the breast of a pregnant woman, and her silhouette looked like the the silhouette of a pregnant woman, but we don't know what happened to it.
Thank you for your testimony. I want to leave some time for the court to ask you questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony about your mother and your aunt. And we're very sorry for your family loss. One of the issues that concerns the tribunal is the extent and nature of sexual offenses against women during this period. Is there anything that you could tell us about that?
No, I don't have any special clue about sexual violence, sexual physical violence on my mother and my aunt. The way they were treated as mothers, which part of their gender identities, I can tell. But what maybe I can say to the court is what my grandfather wrote about my mother's transfer to the Ward 2000 of the Sefari Detention Center. I quote him: "We learned she had been tortured at land, her spine was cracked, her eardrum of her left, her ear had been punctured, and there were burn marks on several parts of her body." I'm going a little bit further. She had been whipped with electrical cables, plunged into a pool of freezing water. Wires had been wrapped around her breasts, and she had been given electric shocks. She had been burned with cigarettes, her teeth had been smashed, boiling water had been poured into the sensitive parts of her body. Is that again something that you would consider? Her hair had been pulled out from the roots by the handful. She had been hung upside down by the feet. That's what I have to say.
Again, sorry.
I'd like to ask you about your mother's political activity at her first trial in 1982. It seems that when your mother was arrested, she was working for the MEK, which was at that stage a lawful political organization. It was subsequently declared unlawful. At her trial in 1982, you say she was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, and she complained about this, and then she was subsequently sentenced to further 5 years to 10 years. Was she tried by the same judge on both occasions?
Yes.
And I presume she was undefended on both occasions?
Yes.
So it seems that the judge was sentenced to 5 years on the first occasion, was angry that she contested the decision, and so he just in a random manner added on a further 5 years. Is that your impression?
It seems so. It's what I understood from the question I had asked, and that it's a very
Yes. And there was no new evidence on the second occasion.
No. According to what I have heard, there was it was not really a retrial. It was just an extension for a few minutes of her first trial after she had complained in the court to her couple.
When your aunt was arrested, you say that she was on a bus following the death of her husband, also the husband of her friend. What was the cause of their death, her husband's death?
He was shot by the personnel who were conducting the arrest. after a while out of his scars. And I don't know about the man who was his comrade who was with him. I don't know exactly how he died during his arrest, but he also died from he has been wounded to death during his arrest.
Thank you for your testimony. Could you please tell me, when did your grandfather write his memoirs, or write the notes concerning your mother and your aunt's incarceration?
The memoir is not dated. We have the first trace I could find of it is something that he wrote on the back of his Quran about a week or two. I am not very accurate here because I mean about a week or two after he learned about my mother's execution. So it was in December 1988. He wrote a little piece of testimony, a one-page testimony on the back of his Quran. And after that, I know from relatives who were with him at the time that after that he began to write his notebook. My grandfather died in 1994 from cancer, but he was ill for at least a year and in a state where he could not write before that. So the notebook should have been written between early 1989 to 1993.
And you've seen this notebook?
Yes, yes, I have it in my possession.
When you look at this notebook, do you see your grandfather's handwriting and other people's handwriting, or only your grandfather's handwriting?
It is only my grandfather's handwriting.
Did your grandfather share this with people as far as you know prior to his death?
No, he didn't really share this with people prior to his death, but he mentioned that his notebook existed.